I sold my grandfather's watch to support my stepson. Then I found the message that destroyed everything, and I used to believe that love was supposed to come with a sense of mutual respect, that if you gave everything you had to a family, eventually, they'd see you as one of their own. 8 years ago, I married Jenna, a woman I thought had the same values I did: loyalty, effort, sacrifice. But I was wrong. At the time, she was a single mom with a quiet 9-year-old named Tyler who clung to video games and comic books more than conversation. His real dad had vanished when he was just a toddler, and I stepped in thinking maybe I could make things better. Maybe I could be the guy who showed up and stuck around. We live about an hour outside St. Louis, in a small town that doesn't have much except a gas station, 2 churches, and a Dollar General. I work full-time loading trucks at a logistics warehouse, then spend most evenings fixing people's roofs or water heaters for extra cash. Jenna hasn't worked since the year after we got married. At first, she said she was taking time off to help Tyler adjust to a new school and stepdad. Then she just never went back. These days, she spends most of her time on her phone or watching reality shows with the volume loud enough to shake the drywall. I didn't complain, not really. I told myself every family works in its own way. I believed it when she told me, "You do your part, and I'll do mine." Tyler fell in love with hockey when he turned 11. He'd seen a friend play, borrowed some gear, and just never looked back. Since then, it's been tournament weekends, special clinics, broken sticks, and custom skates every damn season. Hockey is not a poor man's sport, and we were definitely on the poor man's budget. But I found ways. I picked up side gigs cleaning gutters or painting fences on the weekends. I started skipping lunch to put a little more in savings. For 7 years, I've driven him to practices, sat through freezing cold games, paid registration fees, and even remortgaged the truck once to cover summer training. A few weeks ago, he made it onto an elite travel team with regional scouts and a full schedule across 5 states. Jenna told me it was the opportunity of a lifetime, that this team could be Tyler's big break. She said all the best players had private trainers and new gear every few months, and that if Tyler didn't get the same, he'd fall behind. The cost was over 13 grand. I told her we didn't have it. She cried, not screamed or argued, just sat on the edge of the bed and cried like I'd just told her someone died. That night, I stared at the ceiling for hours thinking about what the hell else I could possibly do. Then I remembered the watch. My grandfather George wasn't just a grandparent. He was my entire world growing up. After my parents split, he took me in and raised me on factory wages and grit. When I graduated high school, he handed me his Omega pocket watch, a 1961 gold model he'd saved for over 30 years to buy. He wore it every Sunday and called it the only fancy thing he ever owned. On his deathbed, he made me promise to keep it in the family, said it would someday belong to my son. And I meant to. I did. But promises start to bend when you're tired, broke, and the people you love look at you like you're failing them. I found a pawn shop 2 towns over that dealt in vintage pieces. The guy behind the counter offered $3,900 and said he could maybe stretch it to 4 if I didn't tell anyone where I sold it. It felt like giving away my last piece of dignity, but I nodded and signed the slip. I didn't cry, not right then. I just stood outside the shop afterward, staring at my reflection in the truck window like I didn't know who the hell I was anymore. Then I went home, handed the envelope of cash to Jenna, and told her Tyler could get the gear. She hugged me and said I was the best man she knew. Tyler didn't say much, just shrugged and went back to his room. That night, Jenna ordered takeout instead of cooking, and we watched some garbage show where people scream at each other in rented beach houses. I remember thinking it was finally quiet, that maybe all the struggle was worth it, that maybe I'd done something good. Then last Saturday happened, and it ruined everything. I'd picked up a drywall patch job on the edge of town, and by noon my back felt like someone had taken a bat to my spine. I decided to head home early and maybe take a nap. Jenna's car was already in the driveway, which was odd since she usually spends Saturdays at the salon or with her friends at that overpriced cafe. I came in quietly, hoping maybe for a few minutes of peace. The house was weirdly quiet. No TV, no music, nothing. Then I heard laughter from upstairs, sharp and fast like someone had just told the punchline of a cruel joke. Tyler's door was cracked, and I stepped closer without thinking. I heard my name first, Tyler saying, "Travis is such a sucker." Then he laughed and added, "Did you see his face when I told him I needed titanium sticks?" He believed every word. Jenna laughed harder than I'd heard in months. "He's not exactly a genius. Remember when he thought your coach actually called him for that bonding weekend? We just needed him out of the house so Zach could come over." Zach. I had no idea who that was, but hearing it come from her mouth in that voice made my stomach drop. Then Tyler said, "Check the views on yesterday's post," and they both started cracking up. I should have walked away, should have barged in and demanded answers. But I didn't. I stood there like an idiot while my wife and the kid I'd raised laughed over something on his phone. They were watching a TikTok. I could see the caption through the reflection on the screen. "Life with Cheap Dad, Day 132. I went back downstairs, sat on the couch, and pulled out my phone. It didn't take long to find the account. The handle was at Life with Cheap Dad. Over 80 videos. More than 60,000 followers. There were clips of me snoring on the couch after double shifts, labeled, "Exhausted from doing the bare minimum." Zoom-ins on my duct-taped work boots with text like, "When your stepdad's credit score starts with a 3. One video showed me squinting at the bank app, and Tyler added a voiceover. "When you realize breathing might be too expensive." But the one that shattered me was posted the day after I sold the watch. Tyler was wearing a cheap, oversized fake Rolex and flexing his wrist for the camera. Jenna filmed while laughing. The caption read, "Traded Grandpa's dusty relic for real ice," followed by 3 laughing emojis. They knew what it meant. They knew what it cost me. I watched that video twice. Not because I didn't get it, but because something inside me cracked, then went ice cold. I didn't yell. I didn't throw anything. I didn't even cry. I just sat there with my phone in my hand, staring at the screen like it was some stranger's life. An hour later, Tyler came downstairs and asked for money for pizza. I gave him $40 without saying a word. Jenna asked if I was feeling down again and gave me this fake little pout like she was playing a role. I said I was tired. She kissed my forehead and went to watch her show. I lay awake that night and stared at the ceiling again. Only this time there was no guilt or confusion. Just silence, like the kind right before a storm starts tearing shingles off the roof. At 4 a.m., I got out of bed, grabbed my old notebook, and made some calls. By 6, I had a plan. By 7, I was gone. They didn't notice. Not right away. Jenna sleeps till 10, and Tyler doesn't wake up until noon on weekends. But by mid-afternoon, my phone was blowing up with missed calls, texts, and voicemails asking where I was, when dinner would be ready, why the Wi-Fi wasn't working. They had no idea what I'd done. They still don't. But they will soon. They say revenge is best served cold, but I wasn't chasing revenge when I packed my duffel bag and left that morning. I was chasing clarity, a kind of peace I hadn't felt in years. I didn't slam any doors, didn't leave any dramatic notes, didn't make a scene. Just walked out of that house like a ghost. I'd already moved the most important things, my work tools, my documents, the stash of cash I kept hidden under the floorboard in the garage. I took one last look around the living room, stared at the family photos on the wall that felt faker than anything I'd ever posed for, and then I turned the key in the lock and walked out. I drove for 3 hours straight to my sister Melissa's place in Cedar Rapids, and she welcomed me in with a hug and a look that said she'd been waiting for this day a long time. She never liked Jenna, never trusted Tyler, but she never said, "I told you so." Instead, she handed me a mug of coffee and a blanket and said, "Take your time. We'll figure it out when you're ready." I crashed in her guest room with a view of the neighbor's cornfield, and for the first time in almost a decade, I didn't wake up to someone asking for something. That first day, I turned off my phone for 6 hours straight. When I finally turned it back on, there were 38 missed calls from Jenna, 20 from Tyler, and a flood of texts ranging from confused to furious to flat-out desperate. But I didn't answer. Not yet. Because the thing was, I wasn't done. Leaving was only the first step. I needed to reclaim something bigger than my pride. I needed to get my grandfather's watch back. The next morning, I called in sick to work and drove straight back toward the pawn shop where I'd sold it. I'd barely made it through the door when the guy behind the counter recognized me. He said he hadn't listed the watch yet because it needed a light cleaning and some polish before he'd put it in the display case. I told him I wanted to buy it back. He smirked and told me the price had gone up to $4,300 since it was a sought-after piece. I didn't even argue. I handed him the cash I'd withdrawn the day before and took the box like I was handling glass. I didn't cry until I was back in the truck, holding that smooth gold in my palm, remembering the way Grandpa George used to wind it every Sunday morning before church. I drove straight back to Melissa's place and hid the watch in her lockbox with my other documents. Step 1, complete. Then came the financial cleanup. I opened a new checking account at a credit union Jenna didn't know existed, had my direct deposits rerouted, and started funneling every dollar away from the joint account we used to share. Then I logged into our shared emergency savings and withdrew $6,000. Money Jenna insisted was for Tyler's hockey future, but never once offered to use during any real emergencies. Over the next week, I canceled every subscription I was covering. Netflix, 3 food delivery kits Jenna signed up for, her monthly makeup box, Tyler's gaming accounts, and the Spotify family plan I hadn't used in a year. I also pulled myself off the shared cell phone plan and bought a prepaid line under a new number. Every move I made was calculated, quiet, and legal. I didn't care if it was petty. I didn't care if it stung. I was done paying to be disrespected. During that same week, I met with a divorce attorney in Des Moines. First consultation was free. I showed him screenshots of the TikToks. His eyebrows shot up, and he muttered 2 words that made my day: emotional abuse. He told me we had a strong case, especially given the financial imbalance and public humiliation. I signed the retainer with some of the emergency cash, worth every penny. While the legal stuff simmered, I started working on a spreadsheet. Every receipt, every bank transfer, every Venmo payment I'd sent for Tyler's hockey, gear, travel, food, tournament entry fees, summer camps. 7 years of itemized sacrifice. The final total hit me like a freight train, $58, $214. That was more than a down payment on a decent house. I stared at that number and realized that every penny I'd spent trying to be a father to him had been laughed at by strangers online. I wasn't angry anymore. I was focused. With the money and legal plans underway, I turned my attention to the quiet war I'd launch inside the house without even being there. Small moves, barely noticeable if you weren't looking for them. I changed the password on the Netflix account so they'd think it was a glitch. I made sure the printer at home accidentally spit out a page of divorce paperwork when Jenna tried to print coupons. I left a browser tab open on her laptop labeled Rental Listings in Springfield and another one with How to File for Separation, just for good measure. I made sure Tyler's favorite hoodie was missing from the laundry pile, tucked safely in my bag. And I casually mentioned, during one of the few text replies I allowed, that Coach Simmons had called me with concerns. He hadn't. But Tyler's panic when I sent that text? Immediate. Then came the social time bomb. I created a burner email and sent the TikTok links to everyone who'd ever supported Tyler's hockey dreams. His coach, teammates' parents, the booster club, Jenna's parents, and even the neighbors who always smiled politely when I mowed the lawn after work. No subject line. Just, thought you might want to see this. I didn't add commentary. The videos spoke for themselves. The final piece of my plan came together the second I confirmed Jenna and Tyler were out of town for a hockey weekend in Milwaukee. They'd be gone 3 days. Perfect. I took Friday off work and drove back to the house. Since my name was the only one on the deed, I had full legal rights to the property. I called a locksmith, changed every lock on the house, and removed their access from the security system app. Then I spent the afternoon walking through every room, packing only what was mine. No drama, no damage, just quiet erasure. Before I left, I laid out printed screenshots of the TikToks across the kitchen table like a gallery of betrayal. In the middle, I placed the divorce papers with the attorney's card clipped to the top. And right beside that, I left a short handwritten note that said, "Hope the followers were worth it. Enjoy your spotlight." Signed it simply Travis. I shut off the Wi-Fi, also in my name, tossed the router in a drawer, and walked out. Locked the door behind me. I didn't hear a word from them until the next night. First came the confused texts. "Why can't we get in?" Then the angry ones. "Did you change the locks?" This is illegal. Then the desperate ones. Where are you? Please just talk to us. This has gone too far. By Sunday morning, I stopped checking the messages. Melissa told me my phone had buzzed at least 40 times while I was in the shower. I made breakfast, watched the morning news, and sipped my coffee while they sat stranded in a hotel room somewhere, unable to pay for a second night after the credit card declined. Jenna's parents tried calling me, but I ignored them. The neighbors probably started whispering by then, wondering what was going on at the dark house with the changing locks and the silence. Let them wonder. Coach Simmons called me directly on Monday. Said Tyler was being suspended pending review. Told me he hadn't realized how much I'd been supporting behind the scenes. Said he was sorry. I didn't say much, just thanked him and ended the call. That was 5 days ago. I've still got the watch on the nightstand next to my bed. Every night before I sleep, I wind it slowly, the way George used to do. And every morning, I wake up and breathe a little easier. This isn't over. Not by a long shot. But the storm has finally started to break. And I'm the one holding the map now. For the first time in a long while, I had space to think. Real space. Mental, physical, emotional. And the longer I stayed away, the more it hit me how far I'd let myself sink into that life without even realizing it. Every morning at Melissa's place started the same. A mug of strong coffee, the sound of wind rattling the window panes, and me sitting in a quiet guest room with no one demanding money, no phones shoved in my face, no guilt trips about missed tournaments or broken equipment. I kept the watch on the nightstand, where I could see it each morning as a reminder of who raised me, of what I'd promised, and how close I'd come to breaking for good. The fallout came in waves. It started quietly, a few desperate calls and texts here and there, then escalated fast. Apparently, when Jenna and Tyler returned from Milwaukee and saw the locks changed, they tried to spin it as some kind of misunderstanding. According to Melissa's neighbor, who kept an eye on the house for me, Jenna stood on the porch yelling into her phone for almost an hour, then sat in her car, crying while Tyler paced back and forth in the driveway, occasionally kicking at the front steps like a child who'd lost his favorite toy. They called the police, but when the officers arrived and I proved the deed was solely in my name, there wasn't a thing they could do. By the end of that week, every hockey parent had seen the TikToks. Word spread fast in a small town. Tyler's teammates stopped responding to his messages. Jenna's best friend, who used to help coordinate carpools to games, blocked her number. The school counselor left me a voicemail, concerned tone, tight voice, thanking me for flagging Tyler's online activity and letting me know they were starting a review process for conduct. I didn't respond. There wasn't much to say. They wanted attention. They got it. Just not the kind they expected. Jenna's parents were the next bomb to drop. Melissa told me they showed up at the house one morning, hired a locksmith, and let themselves in, only to find the printed TikTok screenshots still fanned across the kitchen table like a gallery of shame. Jenna called 3 times that afternoon, crying into my voicemail about how sorry she was, how everything had gotten out of hand, how they never meant for it to go this far. She said Tyler was deleting the videos, that it was just a phase, that it had all been taken out of context. I didn't buy for a second. When someone laughs while filming your humiliation, context isn't the issue. It's the content and the character behind it. By week 3, they were unraveling. The shared bank account was empty. Credit cards declined. Jenna started messaging me through burner numbers, trying different tones each time. Apology, rage, pleading, nostalgia. One message read, "I miss who we used to be," followed by another just hours later that said, "You're a coward hiding behind lawyers." Tyler tried once too. Used a friend's phone to send me a short message. Had to sell my gear. "Hope you're happy." I didn't answer. I'd already sacrificed enough, and that message wasn't an apology. It was blame wrapped in guilt, and I wasn't carrying it anymore. The divorce process officially started in week 4. I met with my attorney twice in person, once by phone, gathering documentation, forwarding messages, screen capturing every meltdown Jenna tried to send my way. He built the case slowly and methodically. Said we were in a strong position, especially with all the social media evidence, the financial documentation, the imbalance in contribution. Jenna had contributed exactly zero to our household income for nearly 6 years, and yet somehow always found the money for eyelash extensions, brunch with friends, and those monthly self-care packages she posted about while I fixed busted sump pumps for beer money. I wasn't looking for revenge. I just wanted fairness. And more than that, I wanted the truth to count for something, finally. Because behind all the jokes, all the fake smiles and staged videos, there was a man who gave everything he had: time, money, energy, emotion, and was rewarded with laughter behind his back. That's what people didn't see. They saw the worn-out shoes and greasy work shirts and called it laziness. They didn't see the hours spent crawling through attics to fix wiring or the weekends I gave up to drive Tyler to tournaments in states I couldn't even afford to eat in. Every time Jenna posted about my bare minimum, I was breaking my back to give them a life they never once said thank you for. Then came the coffee meeting. Out of nowhere, Jenna's father called me. First time he'd ever reached out without Jenna prompting him. I almost didn't pick up, but curiosity won. His voice was low, tired, almost embarrassed. He asked if I'd meet him and his wife for coffee. Public place, just to talk. I agreed. Not because I wanted reconciliation, but because I wanted to see what kind of people raised the woman who thought public humiliation made for good family content. They showed up 10 minutes early, already seated. Her dad stood when I arrived, tried to shake my hand, eyes full of something that almost looked like shame. He said he never knew how bad things were, that Jenna had always made it sound like I was distant, distracted, unwilling. But the TikToks changed everything. He said he watched 20 of them before he had to turn it off. His wife sat silent the entire time, blinking fast like she wanted to cry but wouldn't give herself the permission. Then he handed me an envelope, $3,000 in cash, and said it wasn't to buy forgiveness, just to return what they could for the watch. I didn't want to take it, but I did. Not for the money, for the principle. It felt like, for once, someone in that family understood the line that had been crossed. By week 6, Jenna had picked up part-time work at a diner. Melissa's friend saw her taking orders one afternoon, hair pulled back, uniform wrinkled. She looked like someone who hadn't slept in days. Tyler's hockey days were over. Coach Simmons made it official. Removed from the roster, future suspended indefinitely. School wasn't going well either. Apparently, when you're no longer the golden boy on skates, the teachers stop looking the other way. He'd slipped into detentions and excuses, and according to one of the other parents, he'd been benched academically, just like he was on the ice. I stayed silent. Not because I didn't care anymore, but because I finally understood that silence sometimes carries more weight than any screaming match ever could. The first court meeting was in person. Jenna walked in looking like a shell of the woman I'd married. No makeup, hair thrown into a bun, clothes 2 seasons out of style. Tyler sat beside her, eyes on the floor, arms crossed. My attorney laid out the financial breakdown, presented the TikTok archive, showed the evidence of account manipulation and one-sided spending. The mediator watched in stunned silence. When asked to explain her behavior, Jenna muttered something about just trying to be funny, and everyone posts content like that. But the truth sat heavy in the room. No one thought it was funny anymore. Not the coach, not her parents, not the school, and definitely not me. There was a moment near the end that almost broke me. Tyler finally looked at me, really looked, and asked, in a voice so small I barely recognized it, where the watch was. Said he didn't know it meant that much to me. Said he was sorry. For a second, I almost softened, almost believed him. Then I remembered him flexing with that fake knockoff on camera, laughing as he called my grandfather's gift dusty trash. The moment passed. I nodded, didn't speak, and let the silence answer for me. As of now, the house is scheduled to sell within 60 days. Market's not great, so we'll probably both take a loss. Jenna tried to claim half my retirement, but we shut that down fast. She can't prove contribution. She never contributed anything but debt and ridicule. The court agreed. It's not revenge. It's math. I drive a used truck that rattles on cold mornings. I eat sandwiches for dinner more nights than I want to admit. But I go to sleep without fear of waking up in a TikTok joke. I'm not cheap dad anymore. I'm just Travis. Man who tried. Man who walked away. man who kept the watch. And that's enough. For now. The day I went back to the house for the final boxes, I told myself I wouldn't feel anything. I promised I'd keep my head down, move quickly, get out before anything personal had the chance to dig into me again. I arrived early, around 9 in the morning, when the sky was still gray and quiet, and the neighborhood hadn't started its daily rhythm yet. The place looked smaller than I remembered, shrunk down and deflated, like the life that had been lived inside it had finally seeped out the windows. The grass hadn't been mowed, weeds crept around the mailbox, and a couple of trash bins were left tipped over near the curb like nobody cared enough to bring them in. I let myself in using my key, not that it mattered much anymore. The new owners were closing in a few weeks, and whatever ghost of a family we'd played at being would be scrubbed out with new paint and fresh mortgage papers. Most of my things had already been moved to Melissa's place weeks ago, but there were still 2 boxes in the garage, tools I hadn't needed yet, and a few winter coats I couldn't part with. I was hauling the second box toward the truck when I heard the screen door creak open behind me, and a voice I hadn't planned on hearing again broke the silence. Jenna. She didn't yell, didn't cry, just stood there in jeans and a plain gray sweater, arms crossed over her chest like she'd been rehearsing this moment in her head for days. Her hair was tied back, her nails were unpainted, and for the first time since I met her, she looked like she was trying to blend into the background instead of stand out. She started talking right away, no greeting, just a stream of practiced lines. How sorry she was, how everything had gotten out of control, how she missed me, how Tyler was struggling and things hadn't been the same since I left. I let her speak without interrupting, mostly because I was still trying to figure out what the hell she expected from this little reunion. When she realized I wasn't going to jump in or ask questions, she shifted tactics, got defensive, said I was being cruel by ghosting them, that I'd made my point, and now I was just dragging it out to punish them. She asked if this made me feel powerful, if I was enjoying the suffering. That's when I finally spoke. I told her it wasn't about punishment. It was about accountability. About teaching the people who laughed at me for years that there's a price for every mask you wear and every lie you build your life around. I told her I'd spent years trying to be part of their lives, trying to build a real family, and they'd spent that same time mocking me like I was a character in a sitcom with a laugh track they controlled. I told her that respect isn't a gift. It's a mirror. You only get what you give. She stared at me, blinking fast like she might cry, and asked if there was any chance we could fix it. She said she'd go to counseling, that she'd delete every social account, that she'd make Tyler apologize in person. I rolled up my sleeve and showed her the watch on my wrist, the one she let our stepson trade for fake clout and 30 seconds of digital applause. Her face twisted when she saw it, like the reality of what she'd done finally cracked through whatever fantasy she'd been living in. She reached out like she might touch it, and I stepped back without thinking. Then came the excuses. Tyler didn't understand. He's just a kid. He was trying to be funny. All his friends post videos like that. I cut her off. Said Tyler was old enough to know right from wrong, old enough to manipulate, lie, and weaponize social media like a scalpel. And if he was old enough to do all that, he was old enough to deal with the fallout. She didn't have a reply for that one. Just as I closed the tailgate on my truck, Tyler pulled into the driveway on foot. No car, no gear, no friends in tow, just him and a worn-out hoodie and that same scowl I'd seen 1,000 times when he didn't get his way. He didn't say anything at first, just stood near the sidewalk with his hands in his pockets, watching like he wasn't sure if he should come closer or not. I waited, curious. After a minute, he walked up slow and asked if I'd help him with his math homework, like nothing had happened, like I hadn't watched him roast me to thousands of strangers online. I stared at him for a long moment, part of me waiting for the punchline. When it didn't come, I shook my head, didn't say a word, and walked around him to the driver's side. He didn't follow. He just stood there, arms slack, staring at the road like maybe he'd catch his reflection and see what he'd become. I didn't look back. Didn't need to. Back in Des Moines, the apartment I'd found wasn't much to look at. The wallpaper peeled in places, the faucet in the kitchen sink dripped every other hour, and the oven needed a screwdriver just to get the damn door to close. But it was mine. Every floorboard creak, every drafty window, every loose cabinet door. It was all part of something I built for myself. There were no hockey sticks leaning against the doorframe, no camera phones recording me without permission, no fake apologies or weaponized silence. Just me, my duffel bag, and the watch ticking soft beside my bed like a second heartbeat I could finally hear again. The divorce finalized after another month of slow paperwork and longer court meetings. Jenna tried to stall it, of course. Claimed she deserved support payments, that she had no job history, that the separation was emotionally traumatizing and had cost her stability. My attorney handed over every financial record, every screenshot of her mocking me while living off my work. The court didn't even hesitate. She got what she deserved, not what she expected. A few weeks after everything closed, I joined a hiking group on a whim. Melissa suggested it, said I needed to stop sitting in the apartment watching reruns of shows I didn't even like. First couple outings, I barely talked to anyone. Just walked with my hood up, earbuds in, pretending not to care. But then I met Cassie, sharp eyes, smart mouth, didn't flinch when I said I was divorced and not looking for anything serious. We started walking together, then grabbing coffee after hikes. She never asked for anything, never fished for praise or sympathy, just showed up and listened when I talked, laughed when something was funny, and sat quietly when it wasn't. She doesn't know about everything yet. Not all of it. Just the broad strokes. Bad breakup, needed a restart, moved for work. I'll tell her when I'm ready. Right now, it feels good to have someone see me without trying to spin the story for likes or sympathy. Feels good to not be a punchline. Jenna and Tyler faded out after that last garage visit. Melissa told me they'd moved into her parents' basement while they figured things out. Word around town is that Tyler barely shows up to school anymore. His old teammates want nothing to do with him. Jenna works double shifts at a diner off the highway and avoids eye contact with anyone who might recognize her. I don't feel bad. I don't feel vindicated either. I feel done. Like a book I finally closed after reading the same awful chapter too many times. Some nights, I still hear the TikTok audio in my head. That fake laughter, the cheap voiceovers, the captions written like I was a joke worth monetizing. And then I hear the steady tick of the watch on the nightstand, and I remember who I really am. Not cheap, not weak, not broken, just a man who walked through the fire and didn't burn.